United Nations Secretary-General António Guterres has called on the G20 to take decisive action against financial injustices faced by developing nations. He was addressing South Africa's G20 Sherpa meeting in Sandton. Our business editor, Xolani Mbanjwa, has been attending the session this morning in Sandton and joins us now. A whole host of data and stuff sort of thrown out there as well, Xolani, but an interesting meeting nonetheless, and one that both South Africa as well as UN Secretary-General António Guterres are saying will be very important for financial distress across the world.
Good afternoon, Arabile. Yes, indeed, that is the focus for this afternoon, and it's so reassuring that South Africa's focus, being one which is an African agenda, is also quite prominent when it comes to the leaders from the World Bank, the IMF that are here, and of course the United Nations Secretary-General António Guterres. And he was speaking specifically, mentioning the developing world and poorer countries when it comes to the level of debt that they have, that the G20 has a responsibility to make sure that African nations, whose debts, by the way, have increased from 485 billion US dollars in 2012 to 1.8 trillion US dollars today. It's something that has to be done about that, and especially as far as these countries also need climate finance as well. The change in terms of the IMF and the World Bank and how they're actually dispersing funds is also under the table. This is what António Guterres said around the issues of public debt and economic justice.
The G20 must lead on delivering financial justice. As you know well, financing is fundamental, from inclusive economic growth to supporting industrialization and food security or addressing inequalities. The Pact for the Future includes commitments that provide a roadmap to reform global financial institutions. These institutions must represent today's economy, not the world of decades past. And developing countries must be represented fairly in their governance. These institutions must also protect economies, particularly vulnerable ones, from global shocks. It is time to mend and strengthen the global safety net that during the COVID we detected that it was no longer entirely fit for purpose.
Arabile, it is also quite reassuring that Finance Minister António, as he was making his opening remarks, did stress this issue of finance and debt and public debt for African countries. And afterwards, he held a press briefing with us where he was very sure that all the people who are important when it comes to this particular issue are all in Sandton in this room here this afternoon to make sure that they discuss. He says multilateral international institutions do have the appetite to listen to the G20, listen to South Africa, listen to the UN on the issues of high public debt, which is strangling service delivery across the continent. Back to you in studio, Arabile.
A whole lot said about the G20, and we'll continue that conversation. So thank you so much for that, Xolani Mbanjwa, business editor there.